Howdy, all you delicious people. I'm here today to review Drag Me to Hell. So, this, of course, is a Sam Raimi film. If, of course, you don't remember who Sam Raimi is, more than likely you've probably never seen an Evil Dead movie, the first two, or probably you've never seen a Tobey Maguire Spider Man film, because he has directed all of the ones of which that I've just said here. Or maybe Quick and the Dead, but that's a Western film, and So, that's a Western film. You haven't seen a Russell Crowe, Sharon Stone movie? Anyways, it is what it is. But anyways, I don't even know if I'm even saying that correctly. So if I'm saying that wrong, then it is what it is. If he didn't, he didn't direct that movie, I'm like, okay, alright, well, my bad. Anyways, so Drag Me to Hell. This movie is actually to fit the bill of what it says it is. It's a horror film that actually does feel scary to me, especially if you watch it the first time around. The first time around, it does feel like a scary film. It does feel like you're like, man, okay, like I'm sweating this one, freaking watching this film and just waiting for me to just get scared at any avenue. And there is quite a few scares where it's kind of unexpected, especially the first time. Um, but yeah, I would say that this movie is to be like what a scary movie should be. It should be disgusting and it should be scary. And like there is to of course to be a scene where they go on and they have to sacrifice a kitten, and so that might offend a number of people if you're a kitten lover for whatever reason. Um but that's just a part of the film. So, with that said, this movie does kind of remind me of the Stephen King film Thinner, simply because it feels like the exact same kind of film. We even have at one point where Christine is to, in her past, be a much more heavier girl, but I guess for some reason or another she decided to uh, thin herself out for whatever reason. So, not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just like the way the story approaches itself. So, as if I'm saying that in a very vague like sense. So, what is this story about? What is my grading overall of this movie? And really, how would I go out of my way to say for you to watch this film and so on and so forth, all the usual jazz of which that are going on. The teeing up of this film also, let's get into all of that. So, really for this movie, we have it to where Christine is to, and here's the real big part of the story. There's some other stuff, but Christine, of course, is to be talking to Miss Ganush, and she, of course, is to have this kind of back and forth kind of decision that she's to make, whether giving this woman an extension upon her home or to finally just say, okay, enough is enough. You're going to have to lose your house, and so you're just going to have to deal with that. So we go on and we have Miss Ganush, after going and pleading and begging and whatever to Christine, we have Miss Ganush turn around and curse this woman. Curse this woman to be dragged to hell. Curse to be, before she is to go and be dragged to hell, to be tortured and tormented to the point of her desperately wanting to do anything to just get rid of this Lammas demon that is to be throughout this film. And so this kind of comes off as like an Exorcist kind of film or a Conjuring kind of film also for a lot of people that would probably have seen The Conjuring and whatever. It kind of feels very familiar to that kind of stuff, but I feel like this movie has a lot of oomph in it compared to a Conjuring film, because usually Conjuring films are usually pretty boring. I don't find this movie to be boring whatsoever. But here's the grading on this movie. This movie is to technically be what a horror film should actually be. It should actually be both scary and disgusting. To the point of us having these moments of like, to where we have to just go on and be like, yeah, it's a good thing that I didn't eat during this film, or I didn't go and have a meal right before this movie. Um, Maybe just plan your day around like watching this movie and just having a good stomach tolerance of sorts where you can go and have a snack or have a little thing of candy while you're watching this movie, and then you won't be grossed out by it because maybe you just have a weird tolerance of whatever. Because man, did this movie just go and just it does some things, it goes some places. I wouldn't recommend it, but I would also recommend this film. It's just it has a unique story that I've seen in Stephen King's Thinner. Like it has something that just is to be interesting, and like I could easily recommend people going and seeing it. Um, so I don't know if I could really go out of my way to grade this movie really all that high. Like I couldn't say this is an epic film. I couldn't say that this is like just an okay film because it for me, I actually like think that this movie does what a lot of other horror movies can't, or a lot of what a lot of horror movies wouldn't do. And so that's why I can enjoy it for its uniqueness. So I would have to at least say that this is um, a good or better movie. I would have to grade it to be that. And a lot of people would go on and have their own opinion about this movie. They would grade it a certain way. They would go on and they would say that it's like, oh no, this is the worst horror movie I've ever seen. Blah, 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 blah. People can have wildly different opinions about this film. I would just not want to grade this a middle of the road kind of film. Um, because there's something that I can enjoy about this film, even though there's some weird things about it. Like we have it to where this girl is trying her best through all of these certain events that are coming up, and everything is just not going her way, to the point of her having to go on and just be like, man, I might as well just go on to hell anyways because she's already being tortured until she is to be collected. So, yeah, this story gets really interesting. And so hopefully I'm going to be able to remember it all once we get down into spoilers. So where can you go and watch this film? Well, it seems like currently right now there seems to just be a lot of apps that you can go on and rent or buy this film. Um, I would recommend a number of apps that I've used kind of conveniently. You can go onto a Google search and search an app called Letter C Movies, and you should be able to go out of your way to say that you've seen this film once you download that app through a Google search. So that, of course, the letter C and then movies. So it's one letter and one word. You can also go on and Google search an app called Fox HD Movies. You can have the logo say so, but the title will say something different. It'll say play 1080p HD movies, and by golly, if you search the word Fox HD Movies, you should be able to easily, and I hopefully will say that you could go out of your way to watch this or download this app and then watch a number of items, either new releases, old stuff, middle of the road things, whichever shows, anything that would come out from a normal app that you could dare in fact already see anyways, but you don't want to pay the subscription due for you to go through and see. Go on and see it on any number of those apps that I've just listed. Drag Me to Hell, you can go and watch it in there without having to pay or without going out of your way to find some inconvenient app that you're going to have to go and, like, oh no, like, only one app and I have to have a subscription for it? What the fuck? So let's go out of our way to go into spoiler time because I think it's about that time to just go into this movie and call it a day because that's what I have to say. Let's go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time I'm going to spoil this movie. So, yeah. You know what? I want to tell people right now that really people could have wildly different opinions about this movie. People could probably hate me after I go on and I say, like, you know what, I think that this is like a good movie. And people are like, no, no, sir. Hey, how dare you tell me this is some kind of good? And no. Because some people may say that this is their most hated film. Maybe they saw my review at some point of me doing this before and they didn't like this film, or maybe they just thoroughly enjoyed it for how weird it was, and then I could like thank God because they probably thought it was amazing. It was the best horror film they'd ever seen. Um, I just love how it actually is to kind of get me on edge because even like it doesn't really do that for me. The remake, maybe it chapter two was kind of like the gross out kind of maybe more of a scarier film, but like at least it felt better than the first one. Um, so yeah, let's go into spoilers. So let's spoil this film. So we go on in the very beginning of this film have a woman called Dina Sean San Dina. If I'm ill pronouncing any number of names of which at some point, that is what it is. So we go on, we have this time period at the very beginning of this film being in 1969, and it's in California. And then I'm assuming X amount of years later, we have it to where Sandina is going to take on this demon later on in life. So we go on and we have a number of farm workers, like a farm family. We have a mother, a wife, or a mother, a father, and a son, all going to, of course, Sean here, Sean Sandina, and is saying like, please, like, help my child, because it seems like he is hearing voices and he is seeing things, and wouldn't recommend him, as I always like to say. So Sean is going on to like, yeah, bring him in. So we go on, and of course we have this kid who seems to be like sweating like it's no tomorrow, and he's just like clutching the hands of his parents and just like hold on, kid, just hold on. So we go on and we have this kid who is absolutely just terrified. We have, of course, a number of hands that are to be kind of demonically placed upon this one window. So we go on and we have this kid who is to, of course, be afraid by the things that he is hearing, so much so that he's like covering his ears and like, I can't take the sound. So we go on, we have this kid run off for him to go on and kind of go against this one railing, and he falls over and he like smacks onto this ground, and we're thinking like, oh, this kid is freaking dead. So we go on, we have Sean and his parents run off to go and find that, like, I guess this kid isn't dead after all, but then all of a sudden he just gets sucked down a portal, and the portal of hell. This kid is just to get slurped down. As we, of course, have Sean Sandina who's going on and saying, like, well, hey, I'm going to go and take this demon down the next time around. Like this woman is hoping for a second chance at this, a second bat at this. What kind of, what? Like, why would this woman welcome to, like, try to get at this demon the second time around? You would think this woman would just be like, dude, I'm gonna freaking retire after this. If I can't save anybody, then dude, I'm acing. Like I'm out of here. I'm donezo because once these monsters get more and more complicated, like no, I'm out. Peace. Anyways, so we go on into whatever current time thing is because I don't think it really matters. I think we just have some time that has exchanged within that time period. So Christine, of course, is to be waking up next to her lovely husband Clay, who is to be played by Justin Long. Of course, a lot of people probably know Justin Long from Jeepers Creepers or Tusk, the Kevin Smith movie. Maybe you would go on and know him from a number of other things, like Zack and Miri make a Porno. Zack and Miri. Anyways, pushing on. So, Justin Long, I've seen him in a number of things. So, I wouldn't recommend all of them, but I've seen of them. Go into his IMDb, just scroll through and find more things that you've seen Justin Long in, because you'll find that the movies get very creative. Check out that one Liam Neeson film. Man, does that movie get really creative. Anyways, so we go on and we have Christine and Clay who are spending the day in bed together, but Christina then has to go to work, which Clay is going to drive her to. So it seems that Clay is to have this thing about this coin collection, and so we go on and we have Christine who is to make it into work, as Clay was to wake up to have his mom call him, recommending him to find some other woman besides the woman he's with, because Clay's mother doesn't approve of the woman that he's currently with, because it feels like he is to be with a woman that he probably should not settle down with. Where Christine is like, really? Like, come on, like, I'm a catch. So, Allison Lohman is a catch. She is. So, we go on into the story, and so Christine is going off to work, and so I guess she is to be this loan manager character that is to go on and confirm whether or not people should get extended or stuff on their loans. So we have it to where, like, I feel like this is like from the Jim Carrey movie Yes Man. I don't know when that Yes Man movie came out, but like it feels similar to that for some goofy reason. So, and I know that probably wasn't the intention, but still. So we go on and we have Christine, who, of course, is asking Mr. Jacks, which is her superior, whether or not she is going to get this assistant manager job. And we have Mr. Jacks that's going on and telling Christine, it's like, well, here's the thing. We have it to where it seems that you and one other guy are to be in the running for this position, and we're not quite sure about that yet. And Christina's like, wait a minute. The brand new guy, Stu, is to all of a sudden be like more qualified than I am. And Mr. Jax is like, well, here's the thing, like Mr. Stu or like Stu is to be very like aggressive. So we like that about him. Or you could also say that he probably has balls. No, it's a joke. So we go on and we have Christine, who just has this carrot just dangling over her head about this whole job, and I don't like that at all. I think that's garbage. Because really, here's the goofy thing. If you have a job and you're possibly going to get promoted, it seems like a job doesn't really want or doesn't really enjoy or doesn't want to go on, and even if you get a higher position, you don't get paid more. You don't get paid, like, you basically can go and get a title, but you don't get paid a dollar, dime, anything more than what you were already getting. So it just feels like you're going on and doing a job that you didn't like, you weren't exactly jazzed to get, but you just wanted to like probably have that to just fill out a resume for when you're going on to another job. To just say, hey, I was this person for X amount of weeks or months or years. So they can go on and be like, oh, yeah, like, so that's great that you went on and got that big, massive thing at that other job. Well, you're going to go right back to the bottom totem pole and you're going to just go on and just like work your way back up again. So really, like, it makes no real difference like what you do as far as like promotions and whatever, because it really doesn't matter at the end of it all. But you can just get paid a little bit more for X amount of time, or you can have this position that you should have just got anyways. It's just, it is what it is. It's just the dangling of carrot for you to just be like going on like, I didn't really want this carrot. I didn't really care for the carrot. Um, but it's just making you working absurdly hard for a very brief amount of time, or just trying to look good for a very brief amount of time till it's like, hey, yeah, like we're gonna give you this position. Good, then I can just relax. Because frickin' I've been stressing for this for a month, 2 months, because really when looking at it, it's like, well, I already technically had this job anyways, because you have a number of hours that you can give a number of. There's, I can go on and on about this, but I'm not going to. And I think I've done that far too often, so my apologies. But it's like, I hate a movie or a show where they're going on and just thinking like, oh yeah, you're gonna get this just like $1 million thing, and it's not gonna work out that way. So we go on and we push on here. So we have it to where Christine is going and seeing Miss Ganache, who of course is to be a woman that has gone on to have two extension or extended things upon her loan for her home. And so we have Christine who's going on is like, kind of like, I'm not quite sure what I should do here, whether I should just like say like, hey, we've done enough for this woman, or maybe we should just keep like helping her out. So Christine goes to Mr. Jackson, is like, well, like, what do you think I should do in this situation? And Mr. Jackson's like, no, like, I think that this is a perfect opportunity for you to go on and decide upon yourself what we should do. Like, I will stand by and agree with anything that you are to go on and do here, whether it's to be the pot, like the holding off again, or um the going and just finalizing and just saying like, no, no more. I can completely be behind either one of those decisions. So we go on and we have Christine, who is to of course tell Miss Ganache, or Ganush, not quite sure how to pronounce that. So we go on and it should just be Ganush, I'm assuming, because there's Ganush, that doesn't sound right. So Ganush, we have Christine, who's just kind of tossing the gavel down and just like, no, woman, we're not going to give you any more extensions. Like, you've had your chance. Krypton has had its chance. And so is Miss Ganush. So we go on and we have Miss Ganush, who is going and like pleading and begging and like, please, Miss Brown, please help me. And Christine's like, I'm sorry, but I've already decided. And so we have to where this girl is further and like grabbing this woman's shoes and like, please, please help me. As she's going on and like she's doing all kinds of gross things, like putting like taking out her teeth, and then when Christine arrives, she's putting them back in. She's doing a bunch of gross stuff with her weird like uh what is that word? Handkerchief? Gross stuff. Anyways, so we go on, and Christine is calling for like security, garçon, like a party of one over here that's being a little bit too grabby. So we go on and we have these security guards hauling this woman away, and Ganush is going on and saying like, "You'll be the one begging uh, for me sometime soon." It's like, I doubt that she will, because you'll probably not be at this bank, let's just say, anymore. So we go and we have Miss Ganush, who is to be hauled away. We're thinking that everything is to be over. So we have Mr. Jax, that is to go on and talk to Christine and saying like, hey, yeah, like we have this new account from uh, these guys. These, I think they're called Miss the the Prefers count, the some account that is to be like this big account. And so Mr. Jax is going on and telling Christine that like, hey, you want to crunch the numbers again on this account, and can you do that off the books? Like, if you're not only like having Mr. Jax telling you exactly when you should take your lunch, as well as like him going on and saying like, hey, while you're out, can you go and get me a sandwich and one of your other employees, because Stu is a lazy piece of too. So, and we have it to where like Mr. Jax is still making like Christine doing all of this work because dangling that carrot, sadly enough. So Christine's like, okay, yeah, I'll fiddle with the numbers when I get home. So Christine is going on McPherson. That's what I wanted to say. McPherson, I think. I could be saying that wrong. Maybe it's Fearson? I don't know. It is what it is. So, I don't know how many times I could fiddle around with the name. It doesn't really matter. So, Christine is to go into this lot where she's to have her car. All of a sudden, she ends up, of course, seeing, of course, Miss Ganush's car, because she recognizes it. So Christine is to go on and get into her car, starting her car up. All of a sudden, it seems that this handkerchief is to smack against this windshield, and she gets scared about it as this handkerchief is to kind of whisk away. All of a sudden, it like whisks around like her entire car, and Christine is kind of following this handkerchief, going like, okay, where is it going? All of a sudden, she ends up seeing Miss Ganush behind her, and so now we have it to where Miss Ganush is to go on and like start to beat up Christine here, to the point of we end up having one scene where Miss Ganush is to lose her teeth, and she's just weirdly biting like the chin and just like the mouth of Christine here. I'm like, oh my god. And it seems like this woman is just like, is it slobber? Is it whatever? This is so gross. This goofiest thing in this scene. Um, but we just go on and we have Christine who kicks Miss Ganush out of this car. And then, as this woman is desperately trying to get back in this car to try and take down Christine even more so, we go on, we have Christine who closes this car. And so we go on, we just eventually have it where Christine and Ganush is just fighting it out. And to the point where eventually we go on and have Christine, who is to call the authorities and just report this whole thing, that this old woman was just after her. And so we have at one point where Miss Ganush was going and taking a of course button from Christine's coat and cursing Christine from this button. And so we go on and we have Christine who's like thinking nothing of it, where it's like, oh no, like I'm sure that this was just some people can just go on and just like intimidate or could go on and like say all the stuff that they can, but so we go and we have Christine who's starting to feel like very uneasy about things to the point of her all of a sudden things are starting to become very unusual for her. Where we have at one moment where Christine is going to work the next day, and all of a sudden she ends up like bleeding a little from the nose, and Mr. Jackson to realize that, like, hey, you're bleeding from the nose. Like, are you okay? And then all of a sudden Christine is to just start gushing with blood out of her like nose and her mouth, and Mr. Jackson's getting like sprayed with all this blood, and he's going on and asking his coworker, it's like, hey, like, did I get any in my mouth? And the woman's like, no, I think you're fine. So because we also had Christine that was going on and talking with Stu, and Stu was going on and wanting to get information from Christine, and he weirdly was like kind of like hitting his nails against his desk. To all of a sudden, Christine was going on and mentioning about Stu doing this, and he kind of was like, "Whoa, like what's up with her?" So that's when her nose starts to bleed, and that's where all of a sudden she has like the fountain of blood coming out of her face. So we of course have Mr. Jackson telling Christine like, "Hey, maybe you should take a day off. There must be something wrong going on with you." So we go and we have Christine, who more and more is to be like frightened about what's really going on here, to the point of her going and talking to Clay and saying that, yeah, maybe it's about time for me to go on and speak to a fortune teller, because Christine is to go on and try to talk with, uh, of course, Miss Ganush's daughter, uh, which I think is Ilinka. And so we go on and we have Clean meet with this daughter, and we have it to where Christine is thinking like, maybe I should try to make amends, maybe I should apologize to this woman. And so we go on and we have this woman who's telling Christine, it's like, well, you're a little bit too late because this woman is now dead. I'm like, of course she's dead. So that way, there's no way that this woman could reverse the curse or anything like that. No, this Christine girl is basically effed. So we go and we have Christine who is at this funeral with all this big massive family. And so we go and we have Christine who's trying to talk to this corpse. All of a sudden to have this corpse just yank some hair out of Christine and to also like fall on top of her, and is like tearing some hair out with her still just being this corpse. And so we go on and we have this woman, it's like, man, you're just like ruining everything, aren't you? So Christine goes on and is desperate to possibly have it to where she needs to talk to a fortune teller who ends up being Rahim. I believe that's how it's pronounced. If not, then I'm wrong. So we go on and we have it to where Christine is talking to Rahim, and he, of course, to mention that maybe this girl was to do like something bad in her past, um, or something that she might have done much more recently, And we go on and we have Raheem, who is to realize that this girl is missing a button upon her coat. And Raheem is to also mention that this woman is to deal in money. And we have it to where Clay is listening to all this and is like, I'm sorry, anything that he's going on and trying to have like told you like really like sounds too easy to just say. It's like, well, of course anybody is to possibly have that happen to them. This seems to all be very common stuff, and Clay is very skeptical. So, but we go on and we have Raheem, who is, when the further and further he talks to Christine, the more and more he's starting to pick something up. Uh, Something that he's picking up is to not be of his liking. So he's going on and saying, like, you know what, like, I'm a little tired. Let's end this whole ceremony. I'm peacing out. Goodbye. Like, I don't want to deal with you. To the point of Raheem is to almost wanting to refund this money. And so Christine refuses to take back the money. And so that's like Clay's thing of just like, well, yeah, like he kept the money, right? So we go on and we have where Christine is just to continue to have problems with this thing, and it just won't go away, to the point of her going on and being in her home, and she all of a sudden is to see this shadow of this ram that is going on and smacking into her body, and all of a sudden is to make her lip bleed. And so now she's going on and like, okay, there's something weird here that doesn't really make sense, as a bunch of her items in her home are kind of being shaken or weirdly. Or we go on and have her parts of her house or parts of her place is kind of being like damaged or shuffled or whatever. So we go on, and of course we have Christine, who calls Clay again about this whole situation. And we have it to where Clay, I guess, had called I think a therapist, because it doesn't really seem like he did he have an on-call doctor? I'm gonna assume that's some kind of therapist. So we have it to where Clay is mentioning to Christine, it's like, well, yeah, it must have just been the stress of that whole event where you were getting beaten out of by that old lady. And so they justify it like it's just a post-traumatic stress event, and so really, uh, Clay is to say maybe someone else broke into this place, and Christine is like, no, I was by myself. And so Clay is trying to figure out what Christine saw, and Christine didn't want to like confess to what it really was because it would not have made sense. So we go on and we have Christine, who finally goes back to Raheem. It is now asking him, and so, well, hey, like, what can I do to get this Lamaze thing, like, make it go away? Because we have it to where this guy has to figure out what exactly this is. And so we go on, we have Raheem, who is telling Christine that she may have to sacrifice a animal of sorts, like a goat or something like that, to appease this demon. And so Christine is like, really? Like, I don't want to have to go and kill an animal to have this be resolved. And we have Raheem that's just like, well, the more and more that this thing is to continue, the more you're probably going to be desperate to just have this thing get resolved. So Christine is to, of course, go on through her place and have this ram via the shadow appear more and more, forcing Christine to find her kitten, and of course is to sacrifice it. But here's the thing. I'm assuming like we had it to where Christine like didn't speak any limerick or anything like that. to have this demon realize that it's being sacrificed to it. So, anyways, we go on and we, of course, have Christine bury this kitten in the backyard. And so now we have it to where Clay is wanting to bring Christine to his parents. And Christine is putting on this yellow dress, thinking that everything is going to be okay. And so Clay is going on and noticing that Christine, on her clothes before she was to get into that yellow dress, had blood on it. And Christine is just like, oh, no, no, no. This is just some potato juice or tomato juice. So Clay is wanting to second guess having Christine go with him to this family get together, but Christine's like, no, like, it's fine. So Christine, of course, is to make this cake, which she is to bring this to this family get together. So we go on and we have Christine, who is to see a picture of herself being much more the heavier girl at some point, and she is to crumple up this paper and to toss it because she, of course, hates that photo. So, excuse me. So we have Christine, who is to make it to Clay's parents' house, where we, of course, are to meet with Leonard Dalton and Trudy Dalton. So we, of course, go on and have it where Christine is to talk to the mother and father of Clay, and it seems that they aren't easily won over by this girl, but it seems that eventually, once they start talking in this dinner, and we have some like reminiscing stories about how really just Christine and Clay had gotten together at some bar, and this and that, just going and talking about how Christine is to be this this loan manager, and it seems like she's going to get promoted soon. And it seems that the parents are just going on. I'm like, you know what? Like, I think this girl does like have some potential here. So the parents are won over by Christine so much so that they're wanting to go on and try her cake. So they go on and they are, of course, trying this cake out for all of a sudden to have Christine, who, of course, is to realize that there is something very creative in this girl's cake, which is to, of course, be an eye. So we had at one point also where Christine was sleeping next to Clay, and we had this ant come, or this fly come into her room, and is to fly into Christine's nose and come out the other nostril, to go into Christine's mouth, where she's to go on and choke on it, where it seems like this fly is kind of flying around her stomach, kind of putting it in knots. And so we also had a moment where Christine was to be scared by, of course, Miss Ganush, by having her in some shed where Miss Ganush was to go and shove her whole entire arm into Christine's mouth, where Christine had to go and drop an anvil on Miss Ganush as if this is some weird cartoon, and have this woman like go on to no longer be inside Christine's mouth with her hand, with her arm, with whatever. So to make her just disappear here, because this is technically a ghost that's attacking Christine. So now back at this family dinner, we go on and we have Christine that is dealing with some eye that is in her pie, her cake. And so she goes on and stabs into this eye, and it starts to bleed. I'm like, that's a little gross. So we all of a sudden go on and have Christine, who is to be uh, holding, of course, her hands to her ears because she is to go on and ask Clay, like, do you hear that? And Clay's like, no. We continue to just hear this banging going on and on and on, forcing then Christine to confront this banging, knowing all good and well that this demonic presence is to, of course, want her. And so Christine is to yell back at it. She's like, yeah, I get it. Like, I know, I get it. You want me. And so all of a sudden the family's like, oh my God, what's up with her? Is she a loon? Is she crazy? So we all of a sudden have Christine, who is to have this release this fly from out of her mouth. And that all of a sudden is to make both Clay's parents just kind of very like, ugh, about this cake, about this like cake thing that they're eating, to the point of them looking down on it, and they're like, oh my God, this is gross. So we go on and have it where it seems that Christine is still no longer be welcome at this family dinner, and so we go on and we just have it to where Christine is to realize that this is not going to work. Whatever she's probably going to try to do is not going to work, to the point where Christine is running off to Raheem and is saying like, well, hey, like, why didn't my sacrifice work? And Raheem is like, did you seriously think that that was going to appease this demon, this god, this ghost, whatever it really is? And Christine is like, yeah, not for this thing. So we go on and we just have it to where Christine is feeling more and more helpless, that nothing that she can possibly do is ever going to work. So we go on here and we have it where Raheem is saying it's like, well, there's a possibility that there might be a way to beat this, but you need $10,000. She's like, $10,000? So Christine goes to her boss and is pleading to just say like, hey, like, have you gone on to have some any kind of final like say about this new position, because I really need the money, because I have some family problems and I would like to get this job so I can probably get this this kind of pay. That'd be great. And so Mr. Jackson is like, well, I'm sorry, but right now it just like we're still at a point where we can't figure out who exactly we're going to have as this job, or for this job. And so, but even Mr. Jacks is really leaning to hire Stu for that position, because Mr. Jacks is to find out that this one account that was to be their big fish account all of a sudden was to go off to some other bank. And so we end up going on and finding out that Stu was to go and steal that information about the McPherson account, or the Fearson account, and go on and try to take it to another bank to, I guess, make some bank out of that whole decision. So we have to where Christine realizes that, and she's gonna go and blackmail Stu later on in this film, but we'll get to that. So now we have it where, of course, Christine is trying to pawn everything she has that is to make money. And so that's when, of course, Miss Ganush is to put her, like, fist in this girl's mouth and all kinds of things, just make her forcibly having to fight back in some way or another here. So we go on and we have forcibly where Christine is to only have like a couple grand on her. And so Clay, who I guess is to have gone and secretly talked to Raheem, is to find out about all this procedure, and Clay is just to pay this guy off, pay him the 10 grand. And Christine's like, oh, thank God. Like, luckily you were able to have that money to pay off this guy. Because we have it to where, of course, Clay is to love this girl, and so he'll do anything for her. So we go on and we have Christine, who is to, of course, um, be driving with Clay to this place, and it seems that they almost run over some guy. And so when they finally make it there, we of course have it where Christine is to have supposedly gone alone, and Clay realizes that. So Christine, of course, is to make it to this place where supposedly they have this whole procedure being set in place with, of course, Sean Sandina from, of course, the flashback is now in current time, much older woman. And she is going on and saying, like, what all they need to do to perfectly go and destroy this monster and make him go away forever. And I'm thinking, I'm like, how is this all, this easy setup thing really going to go horribly awry? Because this is far too early for all this to just perfectly work out for this film. So we go on and we have, of course, them chanting and them going on and having the circle. So what is supposedly going to happen is that Sean Sandina is to have the demon come into her, and we're going to have Christine, who is to take Sean's hand and to put it onto this goat, and then the transference of this spirit is going to go to this goat, where we're going to have supposedly Milos go on and kill this goat, and that should resolve all of this. We also have at one point where supposedly one of these spirits that is to come hither, for Sean to just kind of push them away. One of them, I guess, is to supposedly be, of course, our director, Sam Raimi. So we go on and we, of course, have Sean, who gets the spirit inside of her, and we have, of course, without Sean really realizing it, Christine goes and takes the hand of this woman and is to toss it onto this goat. And so we, of course, have Milo, who's supposed to step up and chop the head of this goat, but instead he ends up chopping the hand of this, or he ends up chopping the leash of this goat. And so what ends up happening is this goat goes and bites this Milo's hand, and so all of a sudden Milo is to have this demon inside of it, which Milo is a man. And so we go on and we have it where Milo is going and like threatening Christine and saying that she's going to die soon and so on and so forth. So we go on and we have Raheem, who is telling Sean here, like, hey, banish this demon so he can leave. So she goes on and she does that, and supposedly we think that everything is all good and great and whatever, and that Milo is perfectly fine, and all of a sudden Sean is to die here. And so Christine is now telling Raheem, it's like, man, like, she died doing the perfect thing that she, like, sought out to do, was to seek revenge on this demon, and she did it this time around. And Raheem is like, no, doesn't quite work that way. And Christine is like, say what? And Raheem is like, no, like, this isn't over. She's like, are you serious? So We go on, we have Raheem who's saying, like, well, here's the last possible thing that you can go on and try to do. You can go on and take the button that, that of course, this woman had cursed, and you can go on and put it in an envelope and give this to somebody, and that will resolve the whole curse thing. And so they will be the new owner of this button, as we had this envelope being, or this button being shoved into some envelope, and Raheem is going and licking it and closing it. So you would have thought that Christine, that should have been the first thing that should have came up, to just have it where, like, this should be the plan, just kind of get away from her. So we now have it to where really Christine is having to contemplate who would be the perfect person to put this button to. And so she goes on, and she's now like driving off with Clay, and it seems that a number of mail is to just kind of get mixed around. So we go, and Christine is to go to this diner, and she's contemplating who to give this envelope to. And so she decides to go on and call Stu and tell him that she knows what he had done with the whole McPherson account, and what he had gone and done and switched it around. And so Stu is to go on and confess technically to Christine that he did go on and do that, but Christine is hoping that he won't snitch on him because of his family, and because he's just blubbering and crying and whatever. Christine is like, you know what, just get out of here. Like, I'm not going to do this to you. But it seems that we have it where we have Christine who's just so tempted to just kind of put this button on this waitress, because she's kind of a difficult person to work to deal with. So we go on, and we have Christine who's just thinking, like, man, who could I give this to? Who could I give this to? All of a sudden, Christine is to realize there might be another thing to do here. And so Christine goes and talks to Raheem and is asking, well, hey, like, can I go on and can I give this away to somebody who's already dead? And so Raheem is like, well, yeah, sure, but you'd have to go on and figure out some way to transfer ownership. And Christine's like, I don't care if it means that I'm going to have to shove this thing down this woman's throat. I'm going to give this back to Miss Ganush and force her to, like, go into hell. So we go, and we have Christine going and unburying Miss Ganush, and then shoving this envelope into Mrs. Ganush's mouth, and then trying to get out of this grave, but all of a sudden it's too wet, it's too muddy, and so all of a sudden we have Christine who smacks her head against this metal cross, for all of a sudden to have her regain consciousness and swim out of this watery grave to then try to get out of there. So we again have it to where it seems that Christine is all well and good, that everything is to be resolved. We also have a course where Mr. Jax is going on and mentioning through some message that I guess he had found out that Stu was trying to pass off the buck, that Christine was to have gone on and done what he had done. But the more and more that Mr. Jax had started to question Stu, the more and more that his story didn't add up, and that they found out that he did it instead, and he confessed to it. So we go on, and we have Mr. Jax is telling Christine, like, hey, like, when you come back from this vacation on Monday, this assistant manager job will be waiting for you. So we have it where Christine is going on onto this, of course, coat place to get this brand new coat and this blue coat. She's going on with, of course, Clay to go on this vacation, and so we have it where, of course, we have Clay who said like, "Hey, you know what? I'm going through this mail, and I all of a sudden like found this button. Like, what are you gonna go on and do with this button?" So all of a sudden, technically, because Christine couldn't find a brand new owner out of this whole mission that she was trying to do, all of a sudden she ends up getting sucked down hell, and there's nothing she can go on and do. We, of course, have Clay who's watching on as Christine is just to be killed off here as he was trying to save her, but she ended up getting dragged underneath this railroad tracks to die off here. So, with that said, I think that's all that technically happens within this movie. Let me know in the comments below. I know I didn't do everything in the perfect sync of this movie, and I also realized that I didn't do anything. I didn't do everything perfectly, as well as the movie did. But looking at it, there's a lot of times where people go on and just watch a certain or listen to a certain portion of this review. Not every time everyone will listen to this all the way through. But when really looking at it, I'm also just like at the very end of my day, and I'm just wanting to just hopefully get out of here. Um, so I liked this movie. That's all for the day. It's a very weird film to enjoy, like or whatever. We also have it to where it's consistent amount of times where we're seeing just uh, weirdly Miss Ganush going and like using her like mouth to just go and bite on to um, uh, Christine's mouth. We also have it to where it seems that we have the consistent gag of Mr. Ganush's or Miss Ganush's corpse going and ripping out Christine's hair to where she's going on and saying like, "This is the last time you're going to rip out my hair." So with that said, I feel like everything is covered at this point. Let me know in the comments below if there's something that I forgot, because I'm sure there is. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about this movie, because at the end of the day, I really do appreciate anybody who's go on and have an opinion about a film, or go on and just say like, "Yeah, I like this movie too," or maybe you at the end of the day could not be bothered to see this movie because maybe you saw a trailer or something or another. Maybe you saw the very first time of which that I had reviewed this, because technically this is a re-review. Because there's very rare amount of times that I've gone on and actually seen something that I haven't seen um, for the first time, unless it's a new released item. Because very rarely have I not seen like a ditch second of something or whatever. Like, it's very rare because simply I've gone on and seen a number of things. So with that said, I think I'm gonna number my way out of here. I'm gonna get out of here. Bye everybody. Bye everybody. Um, yeah, I'm thinking of any last ditch thing that I forgot about, which I think I'm good enough. I'm okay enough for this one. So goodbye everybody. Bye everybody.